Thank you so
Hopefully
much.
it's happening.
Thank
Recording
you.
in progress. There you are. Okay, so here goes, folks. Now, Friana, thank you for that introduction, which I'm afraid I didn't hear because I was talking to Prashant on the phone and trying to clue him in on how to join. I hope he manages. So today we're going to talk about Ibsen's play, A Doll's House, which is a play that I love. And I think anyone who reads it has to love it. What a play it is.
Before you continue, everyone, please shut your
Mics.
mics, please.
Please
Ramesh,
mute yourselves. Yes.
Mute yourselves, please.
All right. So as I was saying,
And now
this is
mute.
such a terrific play that I cannot imagine anyone not liking it. And I have taught it at undergrad level, postgrad level. It's always been a winner.
Ramesh,
And
mute
it
yourself.
always spawns so much discussion. So I hope it will today as well. Now, Ibsen is, I'll just share screen. Ibsen is called the father of modern drama. And why is that? I'll just mention. Now, his writing career basically is something like 1850 to 1900. That's a half century. And since he lived that long and was able to write that long, we have a lot of plays from him. So the author, now born 1828 and died 1906. So you get the time period, the Victorian age, basically. Now, this is a play that was definitely ahead of its times. The reactions to the play were so violent. I believe at one point when the play concluded, the audience could not imagine that could possibly be the end. So they kept waiting for the curtain to go up again, and that there could be another act to undo the conclusion that had been reached by the play. Another time, I believe the actors were leaving in a bus and the audience came out and stoned the bus. They were so angry about it. Then another story is that the actress playing Nora was so upset by what she had to do and say that she refused to play the role unless Ibsen changed the ending. And, Ibsen had had many years of rejection in Norway. He left Norway and went to Europe. Now, he lived in Dresden for many years and in Rome for 27 years. So he hardly ever went back to Norway. He decided that Norway was too regressive. His plays would never be accepted there. He had no desire to go back. But even in Europe, this is the kind of response that he was getting. So he perforce had to change the ending, very reluctantly, but he did it for that performance, for that set of performances, and then he changed it back again. So I don't think anyone really remembers that altered ending. It's the one that we read today, which is the original one and which everyone knows. Now, is this a play that became dated? Well, no, gosh, no. I deliberately put up this playbill, from New York, just to show you how current the play is. It's being acted right now around the world. It comes in various forms. There is the play as Ibsen wrote it. There is the audio version. This is an audio album with Callista Flockhart speaking for Nora. Then there are modern adaptations. There is this dance theater, created out of A Doll's House. So it has found expression in many ways. The core story continues to be the same, and it is very much something which continues to live on. And if I may say so, if I said that it was ahead of its times then, it doesn't mean that it's either ahead or behind the times now. It is still very relevant. It's even in a comic book format, every format. Now, I was just browsing through the internet, looking at the covers, the various publications and the various covers that the publishers have chosen. So considering the title is A Doll's House, it is hardly surprising that a doll's house is the graphic that you have. Now, the implication of a doll's house is obviously something that is small, fragile, pretty, artificial, a toy, not something real and adult. And I like the cover in the center, where there's an adult woman peering out of the doll's house. Because surely no woman should live in a doll's house. Then dolls feature also, obviously again. So the center one is a doll and the various clothes, as little girls, we've all had this doll and her wardrobe. During the course of the play, Nora says that she played with dolls when she was a little girl. And in the same way, her father played with her as if she were a doll. And now her husband is doing exactly the same thing. He treats her like a doll. Now, there's no imaging of puppetry, in the play. So I was a little surprised to see these two covers, but certainly Nora dances to the tune of her husband. Whatever he wants her to be is what she is trying to be. And I think this is a very standard concept, isn't it? Girls are encouraged from childhood to become the sort of women that men would like to have as wives, or the sort of women that would be applauded, admired in society. So we are constantly doing something to ape a sort of a preset model or an icon. We're trying to become that. The cage. Now, the cage is never mentioned in the play either, but this is the most popular design. The most number of editions of the play have a bird cage on the cover. Now, the leftmost one you can see implies that everything beautiful is outside the cage, but this woman is inside the cage. And I wonder if you can see that there are only weeds there inside the cage. The rightmost one, the yellow and blue, you can see that there's a singing bird there and the door is open, but it's not flying out. And look at this one. Isn't this forceful? The shackles that a woman has to wear if she toes the line of femininity, the ideals of womanhood in society. Then there's the escape motif, So in the two on the right, the middle and the right one, you can see that the birdcage has an open door. And the bird has finally decided to fly out of that open door. But the one on the left would indicate that the birdcage had to be broken through. I think that's, the wire of the birdcage has been bent and the bird has lost some feathers in the process of fighting the cage, but it's out. Oh, I love these two. Now here's an adult woman emerging from a dollhouse. Isn't that terrible that she should have been in there at all? And the other one, where this girl is crawling out from under that dress being the image, the image of the ideal woman, which she has been playing all this time, but she doesn't want to anymore, and she is getting out of it. So this play is basically about the place of a woman in society, the place of a woman in her marriage, in her married relationship. What is the equation between husband and wife? What are the dynamics of marriage? Who is the more powerful? Is there any sense of equality? Is there discussion? Or does the woman just obey the husband and dance to his tune like the puppets that we saw? Now, I did mention that Ibsen is called the father of modern drama. So a quick look at why this is. Before Ibsen started writing, the standard kind of play that was very popular was the kind that Eugene Scribe wrote. The characters were all very upper class, lords and ladies. In fact, if you look at drama, if you look at European drama, you will find it has always been upper class. I think the only exception is the Beggar's Opera, Thomas Gay. Otherwise, they're all lords and ladies, they're all rich people, and we have to look at their problems, their lifestyle, and apparently enjoy reading it. Just like the Hindi commercial cinema, um, tends to be glossy and about people beyond our league. These plays were very melodramatic. Things like a lost will, an heiress, people contesting to marry the heiress or the heir, stuff like that. Stuff like you and I don't really come across these kind of problems. Ibsen decided that drama should be about the majority of people who are common people, middle class, working class, and those are the characters that he used in his plays. Also, the action of the play should hinge upon the kind of lives that ordinary people lead. So everyday occurrences, because I'm sure you and I don't have anything so sensational, happening in our lives as to make a film of it or a play of it. So everyday occurrences such as ordinary people face. And the crises also, of course, there's always conflict in a play, there is a crisis. The crisis should be the kind of crisis that middle class people might actually experience. Now, the production of the play, the staging of the play was also very realistic. So if the content was realistic, so was the manner of staging it. Now, this was a time when realism had come into its own. It was the acme at that time. After centuries of drama trying to be realistic, now, the drama started with very primitive stages out in the marketplace. Shakespeare's plays were performed in daylight because there was no artificial lighting. It was out there, in the marketplace, just a simple stage put up in the middle, and then theaters were built. Theaters were built by the time Shakespeare was about 12 years old. So by the time he started producing his plays, yes, there were theaters, but there weren't any sets really. But by this time, sets were very good. Theaters had electricity, so they could have sound and light effects. Everything was possible. The auditoriums were good. In fact, in Ibsen's plays, you have a number of instances where characters say, put on the lamp or switch off the light, draw the curtains, open the window, because then that change in light will be shown. It was something that they could do very newly, and therefore they wanted to show off that they could do it. Now, how did this suddenly happen? Was it Ibsen alone? No, of course it wasn't. So there were, sort of uprisings, as it were, all over Europe, working towards realism. And the Saxe-Meiningen Company, where Duke George, the ruler of the duchy, was very interested in theater, and he decided to make theater a more down-to-earth, realistic, credible affair, something that you could believe in. And Coleridge very famously said that when you enter the theater, it is time for the suspension of disbelief. You have to stop disbelieving. You want to go in there to believe. But the play makers have to make it easy for the play viewers to suspend their disbelief. And at this time, it could be done because the sets were there and so on. Now, Duke George did something quite revolutionary. He decided that the production of the play was not given enough importance. And typically, actors were given only their lines, which they learned and practiced in isolation. And then sort of suddenly, they were brought together on stage for the performance. Now, this did not work well. So he brought in a director who was responsible for the overall thing, everything. There were lots of rehearsals with the sets on the stage, with all the characters there. Even crowd scenes were very carefully orchestrated so that each individual in the crowd knew exactly what gesture to make and which way to move, and so on and so forth. So you can imagine that Ibsen and Duke George got on very well. Ibsen's plays were produced with the support of the Meiningen Ensemble. Now, a few pictures that I put together just to give you a little bit of, visual sort of indication. The play starts on Christmas Eve. And Nora walks in through the door. She's happy. Christmas Eve, time for celebration. She has been shopping. She comes in with a lot of bags. She's happy. She puts the bags down. The porter carries a Christmas tree in. She tips him generously. She's in a good mood. Things are going well. And you find her humming. And then she goes and listens at the door of her husband's office room. And she says, yes, he's there. And she's sort of putting her things away and humming. And he calls out, is that my little squirrel frisking about? And she says, yes, it is. And after a while, he says, is that my little singing bird? She says, yes, it is. Now, you get the image, of the husband and the wife. So the husband is in his office working, even on Christmas Eve, because he's getting a new job. You see, from the 1st of January, he's going to be manager of the bank. And he's preparing. Work is very serious business. So he's in there. But what about the wife? She is a squirrel. She is a singing bird. She is a lark. She is my pet. She is also a scatterbrain and a featherbrain and a spendthrift. Okay? Now, I don't know how many of us would like to be called spendthrift, scatterbrain, and all that. But she takes it in good humor. That's fine. That's what women are supposed to be. Yes, that's what she is. That's what women are supposed to be. And it looks like a very happy relationship. Okay. Now, the modern version, you can see Nora sitting in her husband's lap, lovey-dovey. It's great. The relationship is just great. She loves her children. She has 3 children. She plays with them. She's a hands-on mother. Now, a friend that she hasn't met for a very long time comes in. Someone she knew at school, Mrs. Linda, okay, Christine Linda. At first, she doesn't recognize her, and then she does, and she's so happy to meet her. Dr. Rank, the guy in the middle, is a close friend of Torvald's. Torvald is standing in the doorway, and they are sort of amused. Now, I just want to tell you quickly that when Nora introduces Mrs. Linda to Dr. Rank, he says, oh, yes, a name I've heard very often in this house. But when she introduces Mrs. Linda to her husband, Torvald doesn't seem to have heard the name. Why is that? Is it because he never bothers to listen when his wife is talking? Or does he show such uninterest in his wife's prattle that she hasn't bothered to mention this to him? Either way is rather negative. Now, this is Ibsen's device, for to give Nora a chance to fill Mrs. Linda in on what she has been doing in her life so that the audience can also know. Mrs. Linda has had a very tough life. She has been poor. She had an ailing mother, 2 younger brothers. So perforce, she has had to be a working woman, and she had a tough life, somehow managing. Then she got a proposal from a rich older man. And though she was in love with someone, she decided she had better marry the rich older man if she was going to continue to look after her family. Now, she sort of teases Nora and almost taunts her, saying she has never had to suffer any hardship. And Nora decides to tell Mrs. Linda that she has suffered too. She has had hardship too. And she too has done some very hard work. And so we hear that Torvald, her husband, was apparently very unwell. The doctors gave him only a year to live. And they told her that he must be taken to a warmer climate, otherwise he would not survive. Now, in those days, what could a woman really do? She didn't want to tell her husband because it would make him very anxious. She turns to her father, but unfortunately, her father is on his deathbed. She can't bother him either. So she manages to find someone to give her a loan. She pretends to her husband that her father has left her the money and she takes him to Italy. The family goes off to Italy for a whole year. And now they are back, and Torvald's health is just as good as it can be. So she has succeeded in saving his life. Now, Mrs. Linda says, "Why haven't you told him? I hope he knows." And she says, "No, I don't want to tell him because he would feel humiliated if he thought that he needed to thank me, if he was obliged or owed me anything." Now, what a pity. Mrs. Linda is very unhappy about this. She says, "Really, this is not right. You shouldn't have lies between husband and wife. The truth must be told. Think about it, Nora. Tell him." And she says, no, she will not. An unexpected visitor comes in, a guy called Krogstad. Krogstad is a clerk in the bank which Torvald is going to become manager of in a few days. And he has a bad reputation. He has a forgery, in his history. He did not go to prison, but it is known. And Torvald is very holier than thou. He doesn't want this guy in the bank. And Krogstad knows that his job is, he's about to lose his job. So he comes in to remind Nora that she had borrowed money from him. Yes, he is the person from whom she borrowed money. And he also points out that perhaps the signature of her father on that form, because women could not take loans without the counter signature of a husband or a father, was perhaps that signature was made after her father died. So, so now we know that Nora has been very careless. She has not only forged her father's signature, but she has stupidly put the date as after her father's death. Now, Krogstad has a hold on her, and he tries to make her promise that she will see to it that he holds his job in the bank. Meanwhile, unfortunately, she has already petitioned her husband to give Mrs. Linda a job. And he likes the idea because Nora has flattered him. She said, "Mrs. Linda has come specially to see you. She read about you. She thinks she can learn so much about you," and so on. So he's in his mind, he has given the job to Mrs. Linda, and Krogstad is going to lose his job. Nora's desperate. She doesn't know what to do. She's been paying the installment somehow. Now, I won't go into all that, but somehow she has, saving from the housekeeping money and all that, she has managed to pay the installments. There are very few installments left. But at this juncture, he has started threatening her. Now, Dr. Rank has come into a large inheritance recently. And Nora, in her desperation, thinks maybe she should ask him for help. And really, folks, I wish she had. He would have given the help and maybe all would have been well. But while she's talking to him, he tells her, because he apparently knows he's going to die. And before he dies, he wants to tell her how much he loves her, how much he has loved her. And when he tells her that, then she thinks it's morally wrong to exploit that love and ask him for a loan. So she doesn't say anything. The next day, they are invited to a party at an apartment upstairs, and Nora is to dance the Tarantella. Now, Krogstad has said that he's going to put it down in a letter, the fact that Nora has forged her father's signature. And he's going to put the letter in Torvald's letterbox that evening. And then Torvald will know. Now, what does Nora think will happen if Torvald gets to know? So it is so sweet and so innocent because she thinks Torvald has always treated her like a child. He's always protected her. So now when he finds out that this silly child has done something wrong, he will protect her. He will not let her get the punishment for it. he will tell the world that he did it and he will take it upon himself. This is the terrible miracle that she is sure is going to happen. She doesn't want to put her dear husband in that position. She thinks of suicide. And that night, she tells her husband that she needs help with the tarantella. She's forgotten how to do it. They had seen it in Italy when they were there on the Isle of Capri. She's forgotten it. She needs so that he won't go to the letterbox and look inside. And so he sits down, he plays the piano, he tells her how to dance, and she dances. And this must be quite spectacular on stage, I can assure you, because remember her fear, her desperation, her fright, the stress of the whole thing all plays out in that dance. And the dance is wild. And her husband says, Nora, slower, take it easy, not so fast. And Dr. Rank says, what's wrong? And they think, oh, she's hysterical, she's hysterical. Put it down to hormones, minimize it, as it were. But she is trying to play for time. She just doesn't want Torvald to go to that letterbox and find the letter there. So not so fast, not so wild. Now the tarantella, there's a spider called the tarantella spider. And legend has it that if someone is bitten by the tarantella spider, then he will die unless he dances wildly and sweats out the poison. So that's what the tarantella dance is. And Nora dances it with wild abandon because she is terrified, And this is a picture I found on the net. Older times. It's very kind of amusing how concepts of beauty change over time. So I wouldn't say that this is an attractive young woman, but there she is. You can see the wildness, at least, in her eyes while she holds the tambourine and dances the tarantella. Now she goes up to the party and she dances, and of course, everyone loves the dance. Torvald is so happy. But she doesn't want to leave the party because if they leave early, then Torvald will go to the letterbox and look inside and find the letter. So she doesn't want to go. But Torvald has this sense of showmanship, he says that, oh, my wife has made such a wonderful impression. Now I'm going to whisk her away. And so he insists that they leave the party immediately after her dance. And she's begging him, no, not yet, 1 hour more, please. But he says no. And he drags her home. He sees the letter and he's so angry. Now, the terrible miracle that she knew would happen, guess what? It doesn't happen. Instead of feeling sympathy and pity for his poor innocent wife who knew no better and did it, and don't forget the reason why she did it. She did it to save his life. Shouldn't that be the first thing that he realizes? Instead of which, he never talks about the reason for it. He starts ranting, yelling and shouting, how dare you, how stupid you are, didn't you think of me? Oh my God, wasn't she thinking of you when she borrowed the money to save your life? But he says, shouldn't you have thought of me? My reputation will be in shreds. What will people think of me? It's all about the mask. It's all about social acceptability. What will people say? And Nora is so disappointed. She can hardly believe what she's seeing. So disappointed, so disillusioned. Her eyes kind of open. And she sees what her husband is for the first time. And in the second picture, you see her pointing at him. And she says, I've been greatly wronged, Torvald. First by my father and then by you. Because the men in her life never thought it necessary to teach her about the ways of the world, about little things like finance and business and checks and money. thinks that every adult should know. She doesn't know. And in her case, innocence is equal to ignorance, isn't it? And she's made this huge blunder because of it. Now, just imagine she'd been thinking of suicide, and Krogstad sees it. He realizes that she's thinking of suicide, and he says, "Is that what you're thinking of? Well, even if you commit suicide, the charge will still come." And then she realizes, oh, so even if she's not there, the case will still come up. So there's no point committing suicide, really. And then she says to him, "You neither think nor talk like the man I would want to share my life with." Now, the transformation that occurs at this point is tremendous. It completely alters the person that Nora is, because she realizes that her husband is not the person that she had thought he was. He's so petty. There are other examples also, which for lack of time, I won't go into. But she has realized that her husband is a very petty man. He's a very small man, very egotistic, very self-absorbed. He doesn't really care about her. And so she says, she accepts that she has done something wrong, that she is stupid, that she is ignorant, but then she must right it. She must cease to be stupid and ignorant. She must learn. And he is not the one to teach her. So she decides to leave the house, leave the family. And this is that sensational part of the play that Ibsen's contemporaries objected so violently to. So she says, "I'm leaving." And he says, "But," and then he realizes, oops, Nora won't be there. But then what will you do? You know, how will you manage? And he thinks she'll come scurrying back when she realizes she can't manage on her own. But she says, "I'll see, I must find out. And I will stay with Mrs. Linda for the night, but then I must find my own way." Now, it's an open end, you know. She walks out the door, and her husband even says, "But what about the children? I mean, aren't you aware of your duty?" She says, "Which duty are you talking about?" He says, "Your duty to your family, to your husband, to your children." And she says, "There is a duty that I owe myself before those." He says, "What can that possibly be?" She says, "A duty to myself. I need to become a person that I can respect. And so I have to go." Now, she walks out, and there is the sound of a door slamming shut. So it's very definitive. She has gone. But I call it an open end because her husband says, "But can't we make this work somehow?" And I think he's now realizing that he is very dependent on Nora. It wasn't only Nora dependent on him, he is dependent on her. How will he manage without her? And so he says, "But can't we somehow make this work?" And she says, "Oh, Torvald, that will require the greatest of all miracles, the miracle of miracles." And he says, "The miracle of miracles? Like, what is that?" And she says, "When we can come together as two adults." And she walks out. And he's thinking, the miracle of miracles? Can I do this? Can I pull this off? Is it possible? In that sense, it is an open end. Also, because when Nora walks out, we have no idea what happens to her thereafter. It's a man's world out there. It's not a woman's world. Nora has never had to face this kind of financial hardship before. Mrs. Linda had that situation right from the beginning. For Nora, it's new. How will she manage? I mean, I, for one, I'm so worried about Nora. I cannot stop worrying. Now, I tell my students that if there was a very conclusive resolution at the end, then, well, that's that, and, you know, you move on. But while it's left open, it stays in your mind. So an open end is always more powerful than a very conclusive resolution. So I think that is all that I'm going to say about the play. I'm going to stop sharing now, and we can talk about it.
I think we can
Yes.
talk about it. Hello, everyone. I think we can talk about it. And Anna, why don't you start at what do you think? What do you want to do? What would like to say? Anna, where's Anna?
Yeah, I'm here.
Folks,
I'm here. I'm here.
when
Yeah.
you speak, please unmute yourselves and speak.
Yeah, I've unmuted. Yeah, well, I must say that, yeah, congratulations to Mr. Ibsen, because he's covered all bases, so to speak. He's actually gone into the fact, which is true even today, that men only actually realize their women's worth. So I don't mean to say all men. So I'm not being
By
prejudiced
and
here.
large. By and large.
Until they're losing them, we see it so often, you know.
Yes.
And he told us this so long ago, you know what I mean.
Yes,
So I
yes.
think that's really quite amazing.
You know,
Yes.
the concept of a woman leaving her family is unthinkable, just
Yes.
unthinkable. So, which is why even the actress acting that role asked for the end to be changed. She says, I refuse to play the role
Yeah.
of a woman who leaves her
Yes,
husband. I
yes,
mean, how
yes.
can this be? It
Yes,
cannot be.
absolutely. And it's something that today in modern times, women are grappling with. Still, it still exists.
It does.
Men
It
walk out
does.
all the time,
Yes, exactly.
but for women, it's a shocking thing to do. You know,
Yes.
it's unacceptable. And thanks, Moini, that was superb, really.
Thank you.
We were riveted, absolutely.
And you
More,
know,
I
especially
think
when there are children involved, a woman is made to
Yes,
feel so
mostly.
guilty.
Yes,
A man can
yes,
just walk out on wife, children, everyone.
yes, and
more, I
start a
think
new
I'm going to
family
ask
if necessary.
Ginny to speak after this. Ginny, what's your take? Switch on the mic.
I have nothing really to add. I think it's not only a feminist situation. I think there are a lot of situations where a mother would have a strong hold on her daughter and not want her daughter to grow up, or there are other situations besides marriage where this kind of bond could be described. So I think it's so universal in its message.
Wispy, how about
You
you?
know, Ibsen himself, there were some women's groups, you know, which praised Ibsen, and he rejected the epithet of feminist. He says, "I'm not a feminist. I don't even know what that means." And critics have said he was not so much feminist as humanist.
Mhm.
Can we have Wispy?
Sure, Satish. First of all, a brilliant exposition, Mohini, and I was really very keen on hearing you. And I love the way you brought in all those different covers and the different enactments.
Wispy,
Really
can you
done.
talk a little louder?
Yeah, sure. So I was just saying, Mohini has done a brilliant job and brought it alive for us, you know, with all the visuals. And absolutely, I think the point you made, and I think in a wider sense, what Ibsen was examining was marriage. Marriage as a social construct in the 19th century, and why he got such a negative reaction was because people hate to be moved out of their comfort zones,
Yes.
and this was shaking them up. And
A natural resistance to change.
absolutely, but what you said also, I think even today, for a woman to walk out like this, particularly as you said, when there are children, it's even I think we would sort of think, is this right?
Yes,
Can
yes.
a woman do that? Because a woman is supposed to be the maternal instinct.
Yes, but she does say, she says that she's not a good enough mother for them. She has now realized, she has to be a more, what shall you say, a more developed human being.
Absolutely.
She's like a child, she hasn't matured, she hasn't grown. She has to do all that. Then only can she be a worthwhile mother.
And I think that's why Ibsen went made it a point to show her as the child, the father spoiling her as a child, the husband, what you pointed out, calling her, what was it, his dove or pigeon or whatever.
Squirrel,
songbird.
skylark, singing bird.
Yeah, so not treating her as a woman.
And she says, Torvald, have we two ever sat down and discussed anything seriously like two adults?
Because he never
have-
considered her an adult.
Mo, I'm going to have Sriana and who's Shraddha, the younger lot, for their take.
Can I, can I say something? It's Poonam Arora.
Yeah, go ahead, Poonam, and then after you, Friana,
Okay.
and then
And the reason I want to say something is, firstly, I haven't attended in a while. I wasn't here. And of course, whenever Mohini presents, I have to attend. So
Thank you.
I always enjoy it so much. You're all talking about how hard it is for a woman to leave. I left my husband 14 years ago
Mhm.
when my daughter was 16. And I watched this play actually when I was married, when I lived in Boston. And I remember watching it and then reading it, and I cried. Because at that time I couldn't leave, but I left 14 years ago. It was the toughest thing I've done in my life. And I identified totally with Nora. And I think this is one of the best plays that Ibsen wrote.
Yes. And it's a very simple play, but it's so touching.
So powerful, it's so
Yes.
powerful. And you know what? It'll be relevant even 50, 100 years from now.
I
Because
know.
human beings don't change. And that is the tragedy of it. He wrote it such a long time ago. And here I am going through the exact same thing. I mean, I'm well educated. I was a bank official. I had a career and everything, but it takes a lot for a woman to leave a marriage after a long time.
Yes, it does.
So this play is very close to my heart.
Yes.
okay, Mo, I'm going to ask two younger people now to talk. One is going to be Friana, and the other one is Shraddha.
Yeah. So I just want to say, that there's something of a stigma also attached to a woman who
Absolutely,
is a divorcee
absolutely.
or walks out of a marriage, and people's first reaction is to wonder, oh, anything wrong there, anything wrong with her, sort of thing. Whereas men seem to be just walk out scot-free, as it were, and enter into a new marriage or whatever. And there are women willing to marry them. So yeah, I mean, we all know these things, of course. I just had to say it.
Yeah, I mean, this was a case of survival. I had to Nora wants to find herself, find who she is. This was a case of regaining my self-esteem, my self-respect, and a case of survival.
Yeah.
And setting an example to other women that I knew, other young girls I knew, that you
Right.
can do it. You
Yes.
have to
And-
be oppressed.
And I'm happy to say that the stigma has way reduced. I mean, that has
There's
changed.
so many
You know,
women doing it.
Yes,
Yeah,
if women can do it, and
Yeah.
people do not take that attitude anymore.
yeah. So hooray for us.
Yes, that was
Okay,
brave of
hooray
you,
for
Poonam.
you. Now, Friana and Shraddha will be the
Okay,
two people of the younger lot who speak. Shraddha,
Oh, sure. I'd love to actually discuss this. As ma'am was talking about describing the play, I read it quite a few years ago when I was doing my undergraduate studies in economics, ironically enough. But I was struck by the dominant theme of female agency and how that agency was sort of comprehended by the social mores of the time. And I was trying to look at parallels and see whether other such characters existed in the literature of the time. And actually Kipling, who is arguably still a Victorian novelist, even though he wrote extensively mostly about, and he's most famous for his stories of colonial India, had a lot of very strong female characters who were married. And this I'm talking about a collection of stories that he wrote called The Plain Tales from the Hills, which were basically about the trials and tribulations and the scandal that took place in Shimla during the summer holidays when Shimla became the summer capital of British India. And we have very strong female characters in the form of Mrs. Hawksby and Mrs. Reaver, who not only have affairs with young recruits who have just come to the subcontinent, as it was known back then, or to the Raj, to work as either civil servants or young recruits to the army, but they also pulled strings when it came to the administration itself in terms of who got the job, who did not. And it was a very well-received collection of short stories in the mainland, and actually pushed Kipling to write more because the mainland population enjoyed it so much, which makes me wonder, how was that accepted and
Yes.
this rejected? And then I think maybe is it because of the geographical distance, or is it because of the tone that Kipling used, which was more of a satirical, observational, cautionary tale of sorts, and that sense of humor and that sense of maybe a sort of dark humor that it was that he used in his short stories about these women, allowed the audience to probably distance themselves a bit. And maybe when it came to Ibsen, the format of it being a play and it happening right in front of you in such a visceral way, and also the portrayal of the everyman, as you said, and the every woman, made it too close for comfort, and hence it was harder to take. Another thing that came to my mind was Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, who was also a lady who actually wanted to walk out for marriage. And I think maybe that was a little more palatable because there was retribution towards the end, and the way that her actions were basically described, or at least as far as I've got in the novel, the way her actions are described are slightly more on the irrational side. So the audience sort of sees that she is wrong and her husband is right, or sort of they're guided in that way. But
Well-
Ibsen does not guide you. So these things were coming to my mind, and I was like, how are
Yeah.
some strong female leads allowed to exist, and I mean in literature, and how are others condemned in their time?
Well, I mean, Kipling, I haven't read those, and that's very interesting what you said. But Anna Karenina, that moral angle really condemns her.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
much, very much. Poor thing. I mean, I feel so sad for her. But she becomes a social outcast. Nobody sympathizes with her. And it's not so
Makes her
much that her,
acceptable as a character.
yeah, it's not so much that her husband was right as that she was wrong. Whatever the marriage was, she should not have left it. And it's like sort of a moral lesson, see what happens to women who leave. Because
Cautionary.
society doesn't accept her. People don't visit her. You remember? She's isolated. So, I mean,
And meets a terrible end.
oh, terrible end, absolutely. In spite of that beginning, where she's described as this lovely, warm person. What a personality. Absolutely fabulous. But if it's going to be used in this way, then wrong.
Which is
Okay.
what made it right for its time, and probably Ibsen, who did not make Honora's actions seem wrong, that's what made it unacceptable.
Okay, I
It was
think we are
really
going to
unacceptable.
Shraddha spoke just now. I think Friana has to say something. Friana, you're there. I can see you.
Yes, I am here. First of all, I thoroughly enjoyed the presentation. It was absolutely beautiful. The first thing that comes to my mind is the pictures that ma'am put up in the initial slides, which shows this very unique sort of an interpretation of the story in different forms, right from the cage to the idea of her being in the doll's house, of a woman peering through a doll's house. So all those ideas which the multiple publishers have come up with, and all of them sort of seem to fit in right with the story. Like it's not it's like the story can be perceived by different people in different ways. That's all literature for you. But for somebody like me who's very young, not married at all, it becomes very difficult for people like us to perceive what a marriage could be like, or what a divorce situation could be like, or what it could be like to, leave a family and go out. We've never been through near that stage.
Yes,
Through,
but
it's like
I'm sure
near.
you have your romantic notions,
Yes,
of what a
I was
marriage should
just
be like.
coming to that.
And I'm
I was
sure in that
just coming to
romantic notion, husband and wife are equal.
that. Yes,
They
I was
love
just
each
coming to
other,
that.
they talk to each other, they discuss everything, they
Mhm.
do things mutually.
Mhm.
And that
It's
is
like
the ideal,
for
that
us,
is how
it's
it should be.
like we have this vision, this is what we want in our future life, or this is what we want from whatever is going to happen in years down the line. Or I'll meet this person here, this is how it's going to be, this is what my home's going to be like. We've all thought of this at some point, but we've never thought of what if something goes wrong, what are we going to do? Is there a way out? If there is a way out, what do we do from there on? How do you go ahead with life after you've been through that stage? These are things we don't talk about, we don't think about, we don't really put too much thought into. And I think the way this particular play, Ibsen's play, has put it forward, that you need, even right now, as you said, the open ending is what happens to Nora after this. That is the question.
Yes,
The
but
question is,
Ibsen
what
wrote
will
another
happen to
play,
me? What happens
Rihanna.
after that?
Ibsen wrote another play called Ghosts, which in a way is what would happen to Nora if she had stayed, in a way, okay? A woman who finds out that she doesn't want to be married to this man, doesn't want to be with him anymore, but for the sake of her reputation, stays on in that horrible, unhappy situation. And what happens? So in a way, Ibsen has given both versions of that story. Unhappy marriage, woman leaves. Unhappy marriage, woman stays.
Okay, Mo,
Okay?
I think
So I would say just one thing, that in those days, women were not educated and so on. Well, we've come a long way from then. I think it's very important that every human being, whether girl or boy, should be able to be financially independent.
okay,
Because
but
once you can be that, then there are options in life.
Mo, I'm going to be last of the young things. Monica, you're there. I see you somewhere. Monica,
Monali, you mean?
Monali.
Oh, hello. It was a wonderful presentation. And in fact, the point that I wanted to make, Mohini ma'am has just said, it is all about money and how selfless or selfish you are. While Nora's husband was a very self-centered person, as we can see, he's always preoccupied with his work. It is Nora is his wife. This is his family. While Nora is dancing, he's feeling entertained, so he likes it. So everything is from his point of view. When Mrs. Linda arrives, she looks up to Nora simply because she has money, or so she thinks. When we have this person from whom Nora had loaned money, this is how he is blackmailing Nora, again on the crux of money. So this play is all about money and selfishness and selflessness. So basically, the moment everybody becomes selfish and Nora's selflessness is exposed, Nora thinks that now my husband is going to love me even more, because he would know how selfless I have been. And that is exactly when her eyes open to the fact that everybody in this world is selfish. And when it comes to money, well, in case if you don't have it, you do not have that much of importance, whether it is in a marriage or whether it is in a society or whether it is between a woman and her father. So this is very clear and straightforward. So yes, marriage is one of the very important apexes of this play, but here we are talking about money and financial independence. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Mo, you had young people talking to you. You had people your age talking to you. Now I get the guys to talk. Prashant will be talking first. After that,
folks,
Gautam, and after that, Surya.
I think let's have everyone switch on their videos.
Yeah, please,
I would
everyone,
like to
switch on the
see people.
video. And Prashant, come on over. You're the guy now.
Sir,
After
I
which
think
Gautam.
before we move on to the next speaker, I think there are two people waiting to have a word in.
Who all?
Anna and Shraddha have their hands up. I think they want to
They're
add
finished.
something.
Anna and Shraddha have finished. Anna and Shraddha have made the speech, etc. Sushma, I'll call you a little later now. I'm calling Prashant. Prashant, where are you? Maria, I'll call you a little later. Please bear with me. And Shraddha is there. Hi, Shraddha. I haven't seen you for years. Okay, Prashant, where are you? Prashant, can you hear me?
Satish, move on to the next person. If
Okay,
Prashant is
Gautam.
not able to.
Gautam.
Why can't
Gautam.
we hear Satish?
Hey, Prashant is
telling
there.
us? Satish,
Prashant.
we want to hear you also.
Gautam, go ahead.
One is that Meenakshi is here, so she's going to talk first.
See, that's what guys are the
Meenakshi's
audience.
here?
Yeah,
Meenakshi, you're here?
We can't see you.
she's on the video.
Oh, she's on the video. Okay. There she is.
Yeah.
Hi, Meenakshi.
Hi, Moini. Firstly, that was an outstanding presentation. I really appreciated the research you've done, the effort you've done in putting together the vision, the visuals as well as the book covers and things.
Thank you.
And, actually, Ibsen was a feminist well before the term feminist was coined. That came in around the 40s to the 50s. The point I'd like to make is that it was remarkable because Scandinavia and Germany was a very Lutheran society, very church-governed society with women who had very clearly demarcated roles, about cooking, children, and that's all. So for me, what I really liked was the open-endedness that, who knows where she's going. She may want to travel. She may want to get out of Norway. She might want to go anywhere. I would have really liked to read this in its original and rather not a translation, because sometimes I feel a translation does not do justice to the original text.
I know.
So really like to hear your views about that.
No, of course, that expression lost in translation exists after all. But how many of us know Norwegian? It's not French and German, which people study a lot, and one could hope to read it. So yes, that stands for any translated work. But I will say that it matters more for poetry than for prose. So I think I'm quite content to read it in the translation.
Okay, can we have Gautam to say a few words?
There are two things only. One is the innovativeness of the review by talking about for the first 10-15 minutes about the book covers and presenting the play through the book covers and prefacing the review in that manner is fantastic. That's one. Second thing is, to the defense of the married man, the lady, Nora, understands her
Is Gautam a
husband.
married man?
That is not relevant. The point is of being nice and being impartial.
Go ahead.
The lady Nora finally comes to know her husband very late and understands and his true nature. So why blame the man who never understands the wife's aspirations and her feelings all her married life? If she did not understand her husband, he did not understand the wife. So why is this one-sided criticism of the poor married man who's trying to work very hard and get a promotion in the bank? Very unfair. All these ladies are very unfair.
So men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
Yes,
And they can't understand each other.
And I am unfortunately sitting next to this very misogynistic man,
Very practical man.
Not practical.
No, 1 minute. I think I understand
And he should be
Gautam.
sharing.
1 minute. I understand Gautam very well, because this is what men feel, that we do not know what the women want. They're talking a language which we do not understand, and they're keeping it to themselves.
Absolutely. They keep to themselves and suddenly spring something very, very awful at the crucial stage of my promotion.
that's he must have felt that, wouldn't it have been better if she had told him that, look, we are going to Italy for A, B, C. Wouldn't her husband know that there was something, where the finances come from? All this while she says that he looks after the finances. Now she knew where the money has come from. Okay, my father has said, really? What? How much? Why? Etc. Questions
No,
don't come. So
no, that's true. I mean, it's not a perfect play. I also felt that how could he just accept that the money came from her father? How did it go directly to her? Wouldn't he have known? Wouldn't it have come through a bank or something, and he would be party to it? So that's there. But hey, it's a play. Come on.
Creative
No.
license.
It's just unfair that this play is being reviewed by a lady. That's all.
Next time you do
okay,
it.
Prashant, are you there?
But Gautam, I'd just like to say that although it's been reviewed by a woman, but it was written by a man. And that man is very sympathetic to his female protagonist.
Okay.
Is Prashant there? Prashant, are you there?
It's okay. You can talk to Suyash maybe.
Suyash.
Yeah, hi.
Hi,
First of
Suyash.
all, thank you, Moini ma'am, for such a great presentation. It really, I mean, I just felt this was one of the stories, and similar kind of sacrifices, I believe all women make in a marriage, and even men make it, but it's just that being a mother, they feel that they have to hide their sacrifices or something. And men, if whatever they do, they are very open about it. Like, I've done this and that for the family and stuff. But women generally are modest that way. So maybe this is just, I would say, one example, like Kahani Ghar Ghar Ki types. Like, this is just one of the examples where women says, okay, enough is enough, I'm leaving. Let me become like, what to say, more developed and everything, and then I'll be able to, I don't know, like it was open-ended, but I just felt that it was one of the ways things happen.
I will also say that this transformation, is so huge. I mean, how can Nora, who's been happy as a squirrel and singing bird and all that, suddenly manage to leave the house and go out on her own? I think there's a lot of symbolic value, as a metaphor, it's very powerful. But that she would actually do it is not so credible.
Okay, more.
No, Satish, there are new people. There's Ramesh.
I know,
Mohan Ranga.
Ramesh is there. Ramesh, you are there somewhere.
Ramesh, are you there? Would you like to weigh in?
Yeah. Ramesh is from Bombay.
No, he's not there. It's okay.
Not.
Carry on. Leslie?
Is Leslie there?
Yes. Leslie, are you there?
Yeah. I'm
Would
very much. So
would you
I
like
like
to-
the presentation very much. Actually, this brought a lot of memories to me. It was around about 1974 or 1975, where we staged this play, The Doll's House. But we used to be part of a youth group here in Pune, the SSU, and in the Gulati Hall in Pune, we had staged this play. It was
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this youth group was a church group actually, and it's brought a lot of memories to me. I didn't act, of course. I don't
Okay.
act, but
But
I
by
was
the
in the production team, and we were all discussing it and
Yeah. Okay. I'd just like to say here that it's not the doll's house, it's a doll's house.
Sorry.
And that also is significant. I mean, I don't want to correct you. That's not the point. The point is that why did Ibsen call it a doll's house and not the doll's house? Because the implication is that this is only one of many, many such doll's houses. Right?
Okay. Now I got some others to speak.
What about
talk about it.
Paki? Paki
One
has
minute. I was about to say Paki, Kaveri, Mukul, and there's one more person
Maria.
somewhere. Who?
Maria.
And Maria.
Mukul hasn't spoken.
Yeah, can I speak? Mukul, please go ahead.
No, that's Maria. That's Maria speaking.
Okay, Maria, let Maria speak, please. Maria, Mukul, Ashwini.
Yes,
Kaveri.
Maria.
Yeah, so according to what you just said, so I think that this was the ideal, actually, that you were saying that she accepted about, being called by those endearments, which were rather silly. That was, and even that happens nowadays. It's changed.
Yes, absolutely.
But both of them were living up to that norm of the ideal man, the ideal woman, and the ideal husband, ideal wife, that type of thing. So, and that is also why I think the ending was not accepted, because in the other examples which were pointed out, like the woman was committing adultery, or in Anna Karenina, she was, the adultery factor was there, but here nothing like that was there. They were all, they played by the rules. So why should the woman leave? That kind of thing. So that expectation has now changed, but it's still there, and that's what's wrong for both men and women. There's even an expectation now for men. It's still very much that they have to earn high salaries and that kind of thing. So what I'm saying is, yes, that point of view was not taken into by Ibsen, but I think he very clearly wanted to point out about the patriarchal system that was oppressing women in particular.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think that, and of course, let me not stop without mentioning that it was a great presentation and I learned a lot from it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But Nora is what she is because she's had a woman's education, which was not on par with a man's education. So basically that difference had to be done away with. Women also needed to be educated, right?
Okay,
Yes.
Mo, now give me the chance. I want Kaveri,
Paki.
Mukul, and one more, and Ashwini to speak now. First, Kaveri. She's my classmate. Yeah, give her a first chance. Where are you, Kaveri?
But I can't see her, but I can see Paki, and Paki has raised her hand.
Okay, Paki, go ahead.
You need to unmute Paki.
Okay. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I hadn't read the book and this play. So that is why I wanted to join this I had an idea of the synopsis of the play. And I like the way that Moini, you brought out the main themes. But what was not very clear to me is that till almost the end, she was accepting this role that she had been playing throughout her life as a wife, of being a very passive, submissive person who is constantly trying to live up to the expectations of her husband. And she seems to be happy in that role.
Yes.
Till this entire blackmail and these blackmail letters and all come out, and this man starts blackmailing her, this bank employee. Now, suddenly for her to come to this realization that her husband is not the person that she thought he was, there's a certain expectation unsaid for her, because she's expecting her husband to suddenly laud her. And he is completely the opposite, So it is basically a climax that comes as a shock. It's not something that both these parties have a clue to, and therefore there's some simmering angst which has brought this sudden.
She has been the submissive wife willingly, and she expects her husband to be the strong husband, so that when she does something wrong, she expects him to continue in that strong husband role, the strong protective husband role. And when he fails to do that, she realizes that it's a one-way street. He wants her to be submissive, but he doesn't want to be the knight in shining armor, in times of trouble. That's not something he's going to do. She has to toe the line, but he's not going to help her when she needs it. And he has no appreciation of the fact that what she did was to save his life. I mean, I think here the motive is everything. Because again, during the course of the play, you hear that Krogstad is considered a very unsavory character because he has committed forgery in the past. And he tells us that he also committed forgery for the same reason. His wife was ill, and in order to see to her medical expenses, that's why he committed forgery. So, you know, it's an identical case. And he has ended up with this bad reputation. And now she's done the same thing, right? So, I mean, at least I hope his wife appreciated the fact that he did it for her. And
Yeah.
similarly, I wish Dorval had appreciated that Nora did it for him. Now, the outward dynamics of law and all that will, of course, take their course. But within a relationship, I think its motive is everything. Why does a person do something? Right?
But a sudden shock like this to trigger the fact that she wants to leave this man.
Yeah. So the shock is
That
so
is a bit
enormous.
sudden, don't you
Shock is so enormous. It's like her eyes are opened.
feel? Okay.
Okay. And then
There's no holding
he
back.
just wants out.
Okay,
She realizes, yeah.
Mo, we have Mukul, Kaveri, and Ashwini to talk next. So Mukul, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people have already said what I wanted to say. But Mohini, since I haven't read the play and you have, my question to you is: did anywhere or along till she took this last step, was there any hint that she would do something of this nature in her behavior? Was there anything like that? Because
No,
when
in
we
fact,
say,
in fact, she thinks of committing suicide.
that
know,
was
she
her way out.
thinks-
Yeah.
Yeah, she thinks that if she commits suicide, then there's no case. But Krogstad still tells her, so what if you're not there? The case will still come up. It will still get known.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about her per se, that to me, it was a little jarring that all along, she was this happy bird in the house, petted by her husband, and suddenly she takes this step. So you know, because I haven't seen the process.
Yeah, but in the play, Dorval's behavior is so obnoxious. You know, it is so obnoxious. And she's so upset and so deeply disappointed because, as I said, it's not only that she hoped or thought that he would cover for her, she knew he would. That was the degree of faith. And that was completely shattered. When he doesn't even refer to the reason why she did it. And nothing about her. It's all, what have you done to me, my reputation, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
He is not important at all.
Mo, there are people still waiting in line to talk.
No, then
And,
let's
let's
go
have
on.
them coming. I think, where is my classmate?
Kaveri.
Kaveri, first Kaveri, then Ashwini Gowarikar.
Mohini,
Go
I would
ahead.
never miss any presentation you make. You did such a wonderful, account of this play. You know, I haven't read the book either, but I saw the play in college, and I found it very powerful when I saw it. As someone else mentioned a little earlier, what wonderful research you have done to show how through the ages this has been presented. So, you know, Mohini, I've seen so many examples around me of women who are very happy fulfilling a decorative role in a marital situation. Their husbands are kind and, you know, they're wealthy business families, and the husbands take care of providing for the family, and the wives, sort of spend their days in this kind of gilded, as I mentioned, the gilded existence, and they're very happy in that.
Yes,
And
yes.
they typically fulfill this kind of a role of, you know, somebody who's just supposed to take care of domestic responsibilities and bringing up the children, and that also with the help of many other people.
Yes.
And they're very happy in their lives. And sometimes I ask myself, maybe there is a value in this, of being able to go through life enjoying a thing where you do not explore all the capabilities that you
Your
could-
own potential, yes.
Yes, had you sought to do so. But there are so many examples of women.
There
who-
are,
their
there are
lives, and,
indeed.
generation after generation it carries on. There's another, I'm reminded of another, of course, many of you may have heard of this, but in a different context, a play by Tagore called Stri Patro, which is a letter by a wife. It was
Yes,
published-
yes.
It was published in 1914 of a woman who, she is not subject to any spousal abuse or any problems like that. Just that it's a very patriarchal society. She's expected to confine herself to the kitchen, to domestic responsibilities. And of course, she loses her child. She doesn't have a child. But she is increasingly disturbed by, the way women are being treated in the household. And in the sense that they've got no importance. And she's very intelligent. She's a person who thinks for herself. And she's
She
intelligent.
writes poetry, doesn't she?
Yeah. And so she writes poetry, absolutely. And then, there's a breaking point, which is because of something which happens to her, her sister-in-law's sister who comes and who's married.
Yes, who she looks after.
Yes. So
Yes.
that's also a beautiful story. And
It
it's
is.
beautifully enacted. A woman finally decides that, this is it.
Not going to take this anymore.
Yes,
Yes.
I am moving on. And again, it's, you don't know what she's going to do with her life, though she's obviously intelligent and capable. And as I said, it's not as if there's infidelity, spousal abuse, any such things. It's simply, it's intolerable for her as a thinking, a human being who has, who's able to look beyond the confines of her life. That this is
Yes.
the existence she wanted.
Yes, that's the bird cage existence, the gilded cage,
Far
let's
ahead of
say.
his time, Mohini. When did he write this? So far ahead of his time.
1879.
Tagore wrote his 1914, but what so far ahead of his time to
Indeed.
in this manner of of the way
Salute.
women are-
I salute the man.
yeah.
Okay, I think now we're coming to the
Ashwini.
thing. Ashwini is there and Maria Julian is somewhere around.
She
hasn't to-
She spoke.
She did?
Maria
Okay,
spoke.
then I've made a mistake.
Yeah,
So-
Ashwini, let's hear you. You need to unmute.
Oops. I heard her say oops. Oh, she showed oops.
Right. So this play is reading this play is a kind of a rite of passage in our family. So my mother read it when she turned 20 or whatever. I was given the play by my mother to read when I was around that age. And as recently as last week, I asked my niece to read this play. So, because I loved how the various scenes that you showed and the covers. Actually, I thought I knew this play really well, but it just gave me different perspectives. I really enjoyed listening to you and watching, looking at the slides.
Thank you.
Now, there was somebody who is not there anymore who made a remark about this being about things beyond matrimony and beyond women. And I was curious to know what that meant, because I've always thought it was about women and about in the context of matrimony and perhaps out of in regular life expectations of women. But then I think that person's gone away. But somebody said that it was about people. It wasn't only about women, and I would have liked to know what she meant.
Well, I would say that it sort of it sort of transcends its own limitations.
Yeah.
Because we have these two characters in a marriage, in a married relationship, and we're talking in those terms. But if you stretch it, you can see any two people who connect with each other, right?
Yeah.
It should not be that one dominates the other. One should not allow another to dominate them. It should be an equal thinking relationship. Everyone should be in their adult persona. I think that's what it would be.
Okay.
Right?
Mo, it's nearly 8 o'clock.
Yes, we should
And
have.
finally, I think I should get the last word.
Oh, okay. Yes, sure.
Ashwini, don't laugh here. Mohini and I have been married for 46 or more, 46 plus years. And I never get the last word. So
And you are the better person for it.
I didn't say it. I didn't say it. But seriously, Mo, I think the analysis has been very beautifully put up. One remembers and thinks about it. Will, when you talk about this, it doesn't mean that I've finished and said, whiskey piyenge. I feel that I keep on thinking about it. It goes on to my mind.
That's the open end. You see the
no, it
use
opens
of
my
an
mind
open
of
end.
something else. That opens my mind that can I write something like this? Can I show something else? This is what I call,
Stimulating.
very stimulating one. I'm a Hemingway guy when I like his kind of writing of short sentences, show the here also it is that. It is showing people's point of view, and particularly, I felt so much for her that she's dancing away and trying to spend the time more there. I would love to see a movie of that. What would be? Mo, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful, and what I enjoy that each and every one of the 30 odd people that came down here. Ramesh, you were left behind. Yeah, you were the
No,
guy.
he did speak. He did speak.
He did speak. Okay, I thought, yeah. But 30 odd people that got in, everyone had some word to say. Leslie, you are another guy who did say, but Leslie.
Oh, he did. He also spoke.
I spoke.
I think everybody present
We
right
had
now
a
has
play.
spoken.
We actually acted this play, like I said.
So
He said, remember, it was performed at Gulati Hall and all that.
Yes,
Acha, Kaveri has her hand up. So I think we just have Kaveri and then end.
Just a small point, in one of those visuals that you showed of a girl, of this woman emerging from that ball gown. It was so strongly reminiscent of Andrew Wyatt's painting Christina's World, where this woman couldn't walk, she was crawling. And I thought that was a beautiful representation of she is now crawling out of her marriage. She's going to find her own feet.
Yes, crawling out of that role that she's been
out of that role, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
I thought that was a beautiful depiction. That's all. Sorry.
Thanks.
So on behalf,
So
on behalf of the book club, it's 8 o'clock now. Time to bed. No, not time to bed. Time to have a whiskey.
Let me just tell them what happens next Sunday.
1 minute. Let me say some. Kabhi na kabhi baat karne dena. I think that has been a beautiful program. I've always said this, that when everyone wants to have a say, understands the whole situation and does it, is that you have made your mark. Whether it is Ginny who's sitting there early morning on, she's there. And there are people, there's someone from Hong Kong also. I saw him and I don't know where he has gone now. So people have been coming in, listening in. Mo, that was a very nice show. Thank you very much. We all loved it. And everyone, thank you for coming. And Mo, take on from now.
Yes, thank you everyone for being here, for participating, for sharing your opinions. And I'd just like to tell you that next Sunday, we have Jerry Pinto joining us to talk about his new book, The Education of Yuri, right? So I hope you will come. In fact, April is a very full month. On the 9th, we have Uday Kulkarni, who's going to talk about the Maratha Empire, his new book. 23rd April, we have...
One minute. Just let me tell you about it. That this is something which we have not talked about before. This is something that most of us have not even studied before. And Uday Kulkarni is a doctor. He was in the Indian Navy. After retirement, he's a surgeon, etc. But he spent his time to building up a history of what you and I are in Pune. And Pune had the livelihood. We forget, the British kind of whitewashed and kept us away. So no one knows about what happened after Aurangzeb. So what happened, he talks about, and it is worthwhile listening to.
Yeah, I mean, history is usually told from the Delhi point of view. Uday Kulkarni does something other than that. So yes, so April, we have 3 sessions, each with an author. All right, each of them with the author. So I think that will be very well worth attending. So hope to see you next time.
And that's why we are not doing the Shakespeare thing, because it becomes too very much.
Too much. Yes, it would be all 4 Sundays. That would be too much. Okay, so bye everyone. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.
All
And
the
when you
best.
find a
Take
book that
care.
you want to talk about, let us know.
And please write to us and let us know what you would like, what you would do for us, do for all of us, please. Thank you very much. And we got someone from Canada here.
Yes.
She's from Canada. Toronto.
Yes, Toronto
Guys,
indeed.
good night.
Everyone, please follow our Instagram. I request you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I don't know, honestly.
Here's another one. No idea.
We shall talk.
You need
We
to
shall
create an
talk, Priya.
account and then start using the app and then follow us. I have put the link in the chat. I can put it up again in the group.
Put it in the group,
request you
please. Please put it in
I
the
would
group.
request you to send the link to the other group as well. Not the admin group, the other group as well.
Which is the other group?
The book club.
The book club group.
Yeah.